Erica, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today, to talk about this. This is a big issue, a big story that's happening in British Columbia. The news media doesn't seem to want to touch it. It seems like they're avoiding it at all costs. We can speculate as to why that is, but the people of the internet are very interested in this story. The people of Canada, just in general, people are curious about this because this seems to be another issue of the government machinery gone awry and just moving forward in this destructive path that it is in, and it's found a new target, and it is these 400 ostriches on a farm in British Columbia. So I'll start with you, Erica, because I met you several months ago, and you told me this story, and I wanted to see how it would develop because it was kind of in a pause period at the time, and now we've got some news that's happening. So for the sake of the audience, can you fill us in on like what's actually happening? Who's coming after these ostriches? What are the ostriches there for in the first place? And why are we in this predicament?
Okay, thanks for having us, Clyde. And I was thinking today, there's no better day. This has been a big day for all of Canada, what happened. We can get into that later. But as part of the story, the Canadian Federal Food Inspection Agency has made an order to call all 400 ostriches. It's actually 399 now because one was shot actually by who knows who. But so this has been a legal case ongoing since January. And we have all of the details very specifically laid out. But I think the overview is there was a judicial review in April 15 and 16, and then the judgment that came out on Tuesday of this week. They lost on all counts. And
so before we get into that, what were the ostriches there for? Why are these ostriches being bred? Obviously, the Food Administration is involved in this, so one would think immediately, oh, these ostriches are being bred for meat, but that doesn't seem to be the case. What is this farm about, and what are the purposes of this?
Well, this farm is very unique in that it's a research facility, and maybe Lisa, you want to answer this more, but basically the farm since 2020 has been working on important research for antibodies, because the ostrich has an incredible immune system, so that the antibodies that are created by it can actually solve a lot of the problems with different types of viruses. And so this is a natural immunity story, and versus the other road that is often taken. So maybe Lisa, you could answer that a little bit better, and
yeah, I think in its highest level, that's the answer, is that we've learned a lot about ostriches. I just thought they were really amazing animals. Had no idea, but yeah, they're like 350 pounds. They can live up to 60 years. They run like 60 miles an hour. They can kill a lion, and they create eggs that are, I'm trying to get all the details right, but the eggs are massive. They hold, I think, 4 grams of antibodies. They're the equivalent of, I can't remember how many chicken eggs, but they're unique. 20. And so they're unique. Ostriches are unique in the way of their immune system, of their ability to recover. They are prehistoric. They have survived millions of years. They look prehistoric, right? They're red meat. They're not, in the meat side of things, they are very different in many ways than poultry. How they're considered poultry is very questionable, but these ostriches have not been used for meat specifically since 2020 because of COVID and because of the realization of antibody potential. And so the antibodies come from the egg. They're sterile. They've tested the eggs contain antibodies, and so there's so much more scientific pieces to that than what is probably worth the time of getting into, but they are valuable in the way of this research, massively valuable for that.
So this sounds like this becomes the biggest irony of the whole story, is because they have these tremendous, amazing antibodies, but the Food Administration is coming after them because of what, one case of flu with one of the birds. Like, tell me, how did this become a thing?
So yeah, so like us, animals get sick, right? They get, they can get bacterial infections, they can catch viruses, they can do a number of things. They get sick. They had a pneumonia type of illness in 2020, which was very similar. So they get like runny noses, and it's funny, like, Karen explaining it to us, their eyes, watery eyes, runny noses, and bright green poop and things like that. And so the illness that happens goes through the herd. And Katie's told the story a number of times, so probably most people are already familiar with it. But essentially, yeah, a number of birds got sick, a number of birds died very slowly over the course of 30 days. And so it'd be like 1 or 2 each day. It wasn't like a mass die-off, but I believe it was 69 birds died in total, but a couple of them had slipped on the ice and done a few things. But it was about 67 birds died over 30 days, so about 2 a day, right? Then the rest that were sick recovered. So it's gone through, and now they have immunity, which is like what we just went through with COVID, with any illness, right? You get sick, you develop immunity, and it's gone through the house, and everyone's good till something else happens. But that essentially, by the time they got to January 14th was the last illness, the last death. There has been nothing in, I believe it's 120 days since January 14th. Nothing. They're absolutely fine. They are not sick. None have died. And that is not being understood with new information. So when the RDCK that just occurred, the assumption was that the court ruled that they're still sick, or they need to be called because there's still an issue. Well, if you look at them, there hasn't been an issue in 120 days. We're talking 4 months, right? At what point does the disease...
You're going to have to walk me back a little bit. So okay. a few of these birds, they get sick. Yes. And then at what point is the Food Administration alerted to this illness? And why did they even step in the first place?
So an anonymous tip was made on December 28th. December 28th was about halfway between, because the first, things kind of started around December 14th. December 28th, an anonymous tip was made. And so there was a call made to the farm from the CFIA requesting to be alerted when the next deaths occurred. So the next deaths occurred December 29th, and they came out and tested on December 30th. And then the lab results on December 31st, New Year's Eve. And so that's basically how it occurred. Two were dying kind of somewhat equally throughout 30 days. So they tested these 2 dead ostriches with PCR tests, and that is enough. Actually, a suspicion of illness is enough to call a whole herd. And that's been
now
stated.
Is this based on poultry alone, or is this based on ostriches in particular?
No. So ostriches are new. Ostriches were not part of the conversation before, but they are shoehorned in some way into the definition of poultry. They're very different. They have 60-year lifespan. There's a number of differences, but they're being considered. The other very unique thing is how far they are. They're 135 kilometers away from any city. They are so isolated. They're not like Fraser Valley farms where there is a density, and they are very, very remote from anything. The farm is massive. They don't fly. They're not going to go anywhere. But yeah, there's, it's hard in trying to speak about this. It's hard to stay on track because there's so many details, and there's so many things that, I think this has kept us going because, the ridiculousness of things. we end up laughing quite a bit. As horrible as this story is, it's like the ridiculousness of things is it's yeah.
So I'm really trying to, like, what I'm trying to do is paint a picture of the timeline of all the things that have happened. For anyone this is maybe people are new to this story, they haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah.
So the gist of it, from what I gather, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is that some of these birds, they get sick, and the Food Administration steps in because they're concerned about avian flu in flocks of birds, like chickens at a chicken farm where there could be 10,000 chickens, and then that could potentially go on to the next chicken farm, and then chain reaction, we have an outbreak and there's a big issue. But this is a different type of scenario, and it's like the government really hasn't figured out a way to deal with ostriches, as opposed to, say, chicken flocks that, I don't know what the average life expectancy of a chicken for poultry is. Probably not the lifespan of an ostrich in any sense of the matter. And the fact that that these birds are being studied about their immune system is the ultimate irony of this whole thing, is because they're used for that specifically. Now, the government gets involved, and the government comes in and they say, well, we have, and this is what we were talking about on the phone before we ended up, agreeing to do this live stream, was that it's this really strange situation where it's like this machinery that's put into place. And I had no better way to explain it than, and people are going to think I'm a total science fiction nerd, but I do like the story of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And in that story, for people who haven't read it, there's probably people in the chat right now that are like, oh, I know the story. But in that story, you have, and the bad guys aren't like one-dimensional bad guys. The author, Douglas Adams, I think it was Douglas Adams, who wrote the book, he wanted to make a character that was, they're not evil, they're just that way. That's just the way they are. And it seems like bureaucracy is the thing. He had these animals that evolved on a planet where they get smacked in the face from another animal if they had any free thought, and so they evolved to become bureaucrats. And it's hilarious. It's a funny joke in the novel, but it seems to be the reality of the situation that we're living in here in Canada, because we have this overarching bureaucracy that's just a machine, and it's taking people out left, right, and center. Leaving people high and dry, when the whole reason we put this apparatus together was to help people and save people from bad things that are happening. And now they've become the bad thing that's happening. And it seems like they've set their target on this farm, this particular farm in British Columbia, of our ostriches. And it seems like, well, if we let this happen, what else will run amok? At what point do we put our foot down and say, like, we got to stop this? This is craziness. Like, there's no logic behind it, and yet there's so many people doing it. So it's just this slow rolling machine that there are so many people with the availability of the key to turn the thing off, and it seems like nobody has the willingness to do this. And I just wanted to put this out there and give the floor back to you for some comment on that, because this is, it seems idiotic on the onslaught of this. Is it not?
It is. It does not make sense. And I think this is why this is central to how this is touching so many people. It doesn't matter where a person is sitting in Canada or the world right now with their belief systems about certain things, that it just makes no sense. It's all based on policy, old policy that has not worked. We have stats, we have data tables that show the cases are increasing with this stamping out policy and the other policies that are happening. So I like your analogy. It's a machine. And, it was really incredible to see today what happened at the regional district, the RDCK board meeting, and just the plea to be human. And the plea to Katie was so touching. I feel emotional just thinking about it. Just think about what we're doing as a community, as a district. And on the board meeting came back, or the board members came back and unanimously decided to refuse the ostrich carcasses. I think that's a big step that shows us that of some people that can take that human choice, not be part of the machine. That's just the policy, right?
So I think we're gonna have to get a rewind again here on this, because there's so many details that I think are missing. You're saying that if these animals were to be culled, they would have to be disposed of, and then from there another agency has to deal with that. And so what happened there? The agency that's in charge of the landfill has made a decision that they're not going to take healthy birds if healthy birds are culled, that they want to see the testing for the reasoning of the birds being taken down. Can you make sense of that?
I think what came about for the testing was that if you don't know that they have avian flu or not, as if they are culled, and whether it's questionable, are they still sick? Do they still carry the virus? Do they, right? All these things, because testing has not been allowed since those two original PCR tests. No testing has been allowed to be done on live birds, on anything. And so the question is, well, if they carry the virus, what type of impact does that have on our environment? And so there was an incredible people on asking questions about the containment that's required and the temperature that has to be in that container, because it's 140,000 pounds of animal, of tissue, of material, whatever they want to call it. 140,000 pounds. How do you contain that? And what happens as it decomposes? And what about, somebody brought up blowflies. If flies come in, they can pick up virus and spread it. Like, it just becomes a whole other thing. And it's like the questions need to be asked, and they were being asked. So sorry, I forget even what the question is. I think.
Well, so how did that be? Yeah. So how did that come about? That the agency that's in charge of disposal became like an intermediary somehow to thwart this? Because there's been an effort from lots of people online to stop it, to contact the food health safety board and say, no, we don't want this to occur, stop that. But they seem to be going full speed ahead. They want nothing of this. They've got a mission, they're going for it. But somehow this disposal agency has become an intermediary. How did that come to be?
Well, it's a landfill, and so the I guess this is something that landfills might have been required to do. I'm not clear. This is all new to us. Every door that opens becomes new things to try and understand and navigate. I do want to do a disclaimer. This is our first podcast.
Okay, fair enough.
If we make mistakes, please forgive us. And I also do want to say that the impact of this for ostriches, there's no downplay here of understanding the impact of the chicken farmers and other poultry farmers and such. That this is getting so much attention is to try and help other farmers. And I think that's going to be an important part to this after, is that this is no different than what other farm and people are going through. And so it is, so I just want to make that clear, because the passion behind this is because there's more about this than the ostriches. It's the others as well. So I just wanted to say that because that felt important. But so the landfill became understood. It had always been thought, because directions were being given to the farmers how to dig the pits for disposal of all of the ostriches. So at one point it was that it was supposed to be on their farm. Well, then there becomes the environmental impact for them of, as things either burn or decompose, there's all sorts of off-gassing and things like that, and there's calculations that can be done. But all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, it became understood that there was plans for the landfill, the RDCK landfill, and so then that became a question of how does that work? What do we need to understand there? And just start asking questions and being curious about what has been done? What do we understand about the impacts to the environment? Has there been testing of what this means for that community, for the people living around there? And it's just another door that opens of, are we doing the right thing, and how does that impact everybody?
I just have so many questions about this. Like, how does this happen? How does this end up becoming a thing? So, from what I gather, at the initial steps of, the government comes in and says, okay, we've been told that you have animals that are infected. Was it a particular type of avian flu, something like that? And then walk me through the procedure. So the farm has complied with every single thing that the government has asked for, but they keep coming up with new steps and making it more difficult. It almost seems punitive at this point, that they're just really trying to go for the ultimate step instead of trying to save these animals or save the day in this one. So how does that happen? How do we get to the point where people are trying to comply and trying to do everything it is that they can do? And what were all those steps? Like, walk me through that.
Well, it starts with, that anonymous call. And, the CFIA had people come out to the farm and take vials of tests just from 2 dead birds. And they refused to allow the farmers to test the healthy birds or any testing since, or they get 6 months in jail or $250,000 fine. So they're not even allowed to test their birds. But to go through the process of that's where they first came on the farm. And then there was a whole process that we're learning that it's like a cookie cutter system that we're learning from other poultry farmers that are contacting the farm. And that there's a system that they put the farmers through and do long interviews with them. And it's almost like a false hope. And then the lab tests, we have traced where these lab tests went thousands of kilometers. Like, we have looked at the lab tests, all the details. I don't know how much we want to get into it, but they went
into all of it.
The Abbotsford lab. They went to Manitoba. At the first, there's no chain of custody. They didn't even give the farmers the lab results. So when this first happened, okay, the first step is to get your lab results. But then we work with a team of scientists and immunologists, and that we've delved into the lab results. And anyway, this is a whole topic on its own, but there was all that process. But it was like, how many minutes, Lisa, after at a certain time at night, the lab results came out and they got a call? It just went so quickly between the 29th of December to the 31st of December, and bang, they got a call. You've tested, your ostriches have tested positive using that PCR test so it's all just a phone call. And then the notice came through, the call order signed. It's just missing so many, if it was a company running this way instead of the government, you can't run a lab results like this. These are government labs. They're not even private labs. So they have their own labs. So there's no accountability even in this part. But that's just the lab section, what they put the farmers through. And I'm hoping that Karen or Katie were going to try to get on. I know there's a lot going on at the farm right now to explain this better than me, but and Lisa, step in where you can. But basically, there's a lot that happened between that anonymous call and the call order. That was just a few days. But then afterwards, it just got, they were offered extra, they were said there was an exemption offer, and then that was retracted. And, it's been an ongoing story, saga, but I think there's no one better to speak on this as Karen. It's so good to see you. We know Katie's on her way back from the Regional District Board meeting, and Clyde is just amazing, helping share this story with the world right now. So why don't we pass this over to Karen?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I just want to be able to give a platform for you guys to tell the story, and I just want to avoid any confusion. We did kind of jump around quite a bit there, and I want to give like a good picture for the people that are watching this. Like, where does this come from, and how has this become a thing? Karen, what's your involvement in this whole saga?
I'm a half owner of the farm, and with Dave Belinsky, he owns the other half. We've been partners for 34 years, building an industry and proving out that ostrich was a viable industry. And it just started with showing people that ostrich were worth farming and that there were byproducts that were very valuable. And again, about a healthy meat and all of that. But when the pandemic hit is when we really decided, well, we actually had 3 plants shut down on us and tourism shut down. We were hit pretty hard and we thought, oh my goodness, we have all these animals. What are we going to do? And Dave was my business partner, started reading and studying all about Dr. Tsukamoto's work in Japan. And we jumped on the bandwagon, contacted him, and he was really excited that he had 50 ostrich of his own, that he walked amongst them. He loved his ostrich, and we did the same. And he was like, yeah, I absolutely would love to work with you. But we couldn't share anything at that time. Nothing was allowed to cross borders. So then we thought, okay, well, for now, we'll work with another science group that had chicken eggs. And so we really stepped in with them, and they had wanted to work with ostrich, and they had heard about the immune system, that ostrich have one of the strongest immune systems. And so they got on board and said, let's try a project out. And this all started with COVID-19, and we created antibodies for COVID-19. We found out the first round, we were 98% effective of blocking the virus, which was amazing. And then they said, we think we can do better. The ostrich are just amazing us. So they came up with an antigen they thought was universal that would go beyond the crown to the nucleus of the cell, and it would neutralize it. So we tried the next season. We said, okay, let's go in this. And we first checked our birds. We wanted to make sure nobody was harmed and nobody got a fever, that everybody was okay. And everything was fine. We walk up to the hens, give an antigen, nothing changed. They kept clucking, laying their eggs. So we were like, this is really easy. And we can make a difference in the world. And the second year, we were 98% effective of neutralizing the virus, and it would take on any variant. We tested one. We were 98% effective in neutralizing. And the next was Omicron. Omicron came on, and the lab said, let's test it. We tested it, and they phoned us and they said, oh my goodness, you're 98% effective of neutralizing the Omicron virus. And we were like, oh my God, that's pretty good, the variant. And we were on cloud 9. 2 weeks later, we got a call that the lab was bought out, shut down. He signed a non-disclosure agreement, and our project was shut down indefinitely. When we were like, okay.
So when you say it was effective against all these strains, are you talking about effective treatments in humans, or is this effective treatments in humans against these?
Yeah,
so a replacement for any other sort of pharmaceuticals that may be out on the market today, right, for example.
Absolutely natural, no side effects. It could be administered with a nasal spray. So because it was respiratory, it was a very simple, effective treatment that we could have provided. And but unfortunately, before we got out of the gate, basically our project got shut down.
Well, that's suspicious. I mean, to say the least. I mean, I'm not going to make any speculations on what was. I don't know if I'm allowed to on this platform, but we can all just kind of judge for ourselves, you know, what motives might have been involved in that. So fast forward, how do we go from that to then they want to take your animals and cull them all? How does that occur?
So then we started working with Dr. Tsukamoto, and we stayed a research facility in Tsukamoto. Now the borders had freed up a little bit, and he had sent his lead scientists down to the farm, and we were working with them. And we were working on just before we got the migratory ducks that came through here, we were working on a diet pill. Again, all natural. We were so excited about. But then all of a sudden, the migratory ducks decided to pay us a visit and bring the H5N1. When we got H5N1, we honestly thought at that time that it had similar attributes to what we had in 2020. And it was like any farmer does in 2020. We have sick birds. We take tissue samples. We take them in to our vet. They send them off. They come back and they said, you have Pseudomonas. And we said, what is Pseudomonas? They said, a really bad bacteria. And we said, how do you get it? They said, just from a tourist's hand, like that simple. And we said, okay, from a tourist's hand. We're like, okay, well, what are we going to do? We quarantined. We had already quarantined, but we started making treatments of our own, homeopathic treatments. We worked with the birds. We'd only lost 10 at that time. And some recovered. And so we thought, okay, we beat that one. But come now 2025, these migratory ducks come along, and it's in December, and we're like close to Christmas. And at first we were like, weighing our variables. Could it be this? Could it be that? It was a really wet season. We thought maybe pneumonia. It kind of looked similar to signs of pneumonia. We were weighing all these things out. And then all of a sudden we said, it is almost like, back in 2020. So we quarantined regardless. We were pulling anybody that looked sick into quarantine, but it was only coming from half the farm. Half the farm on the other side, there was no sicknesses at all. There was nothing. They were not even sniffling. And we thought, well, that's really interesting. But there was an anonymous call came in to CFIA, and we got a phone call on the 28th. And they said, we heard that you have H5N1. And we went, really? Okay, that's news to us. And we kind of went over the variables and everything. And they said, yeah, it doesn't really sound like it. And they said, could we come out and test a couple birds if you have a couple dead ones? And we said, I guess so. We said, do you test for Pseudomonas? Because it seems like Pseudomonas. They said, no. And we said, okay, whatever. We've never had anything like that in 34 years in this industry. Absolutely come out and test a couple. Our mistake. And unfortunately, that's exactly what it was, is we opened our doors to be to do everything proper. And when we opened our doors to do everything proper, we invited them in. They came in, they tested only 2 dead birds. They took swabs. They did simple PCR tests. They swabbed them. They sent them off to the Abbotsford lab, which isn't very efficient for diagnosing. They could only test H5, not the N1. We heard you need the N1 to adhere to something, but they came back positive. And so when they came back positive, we didn't know it at the time, but within 42 minutes of that positive test, they literally signed the papers to call our entire farm. But they didn't tell us this. They sent us a whole bunch of paperwork, and they said, here's all about the quarantine you're going to be in. And we said, well, we've already quarantined. They said, no. We have strict quarantine rules. This is it. But don't worry. Don't read all that paperwork. We're going to follow you through it. And we're like, okay, yeah, you're trusting. They're going to help you. They're going to work with you. So we didn't read the paperwork, which one of the papers we missed was the call order, that they had already signed it. So we went on to trust them and listen to them. They had a 5.5-hour meeting. They said, we're so interested in your science. We want your science. There's a good chance we're bringing on a whole bunch of professionals. They're going to hear about your science. 5.5-hour meeting. They were picking apart the farm. And in that time that they were picking apart the farm, near about 4 hours in, I said, wait a minute, are you really just picking us apart to find out, how you're going to call the birds? And they said, absolutely not. We're really interested in your science. So we told them everything. We told them everything about our science, what we were doing. We sent them slide decks, everything. And they said that you could maybe be exempt. We said, hey, we might have, we knew that there's some rare breeds out there. Some of our genetics were handpicked from South Africa. So we said, who knows, maybe we actually qualify for some of these rare genetics, and aren't rare genetics and valuable genetics. And not only rare, but valuable. And we said, okay, if we're valuable, we're a research center. We're not even your Canadian Food Inspection Agency. We don't sell our meat. we're a research facility and we're working with antibodies. So we said,
Right.
maybe you're not even interested on being here, you know, like, where's your jurisdiction? They said, no, once you have H5N1, that's it. And they decided, the first we said, well, you know, there's a chance we could have a Somalian blue. We have a lot of blues here. And we get a letter back, an email back the next day going, congratulations, you qualify for an exemption. And we're like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. They are serious. They're going to work with us. A week later, we get a piece of paper back saying we don't have enough resources nor time. And because of that, we are 100% taking away your exemption, and we're going to just call your birds. In this time, they tell us to fill out a unit package. In this unit package, it was all to do with commercial poultry. We said, well, we're not chickens, so we can't fill this out. And they said, no, fill it out. But if you write no on any one of these questions, we will call your farm. And we said, well, then we're not going to fill it out because we're not commercial poultry. And the first 4 we can answer yes. They said, just fill it out. No, we're trying to get you compliant, be compliant. So we fill it out. The next day, we get an email saying, it was an email. They didn't even have the courtesy to phone us and saying your caseworker's gone on holidays, and just take this. It was on a Friday afternoon that you cannot appeal this, and we're calling your entire farm.
While the caseworker's on holiday.
Yeah.
They're just going forward with it.
Well, they said you were up to call the farm, but then they also told us we had 1 month to kill our own birds. They wanted actually, it was 3 weeks from the time they gave us the notice. They said, you have till February 1st to kill all of your own birds. And we were like, these animals live up to 75 years of age. They breed up to 55 years of age. They're our pets. Like, they have names, they have personalities. And you're telling us now, and we said, wait a minute, but half the farm didn't even show a sickness. Oh, sorry.
A lot of people getting in touch with you at the moment. I can see why.
Yeah. It's we
Oh, well, we may have a disconnection issue. Oh, there we go.
You can't. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just said you can't call us. Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, you're good now. It cleared out. It cleared out.
Travel trailer out in the middle of
That's all good. That's all good.
Yeah, we had hunkered down. We're not giving up the fight. So that was the whole story, basically, just that half our birds did not show signs. They wouldn't test them any further. They refused to do anything. And they 100% said, no, we're just calling the farm. And then when we found out that they were calling the farm, then we said, no, this isn't going to happen. They came out to the farm. They said, yeah, we said, look, they look healthy. Herd immunity's kicked in now. No birds are dying, even the younger, the other side, which then we realized were the birds from,
Yep, no, I'm with you.
Oh, sorry, just a little bit kicking in and out.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
So we realized back then that half the farm, we're kicking in and out.
Oh, yeah, no, I think we're hearing you. We're hearing you fine.
Sorry. I think it's, okay. That half the farm didn't show any signs. It didn't matter to them. They were still going to call the entire farm. And when it came down to it, we realized that back in 2020 that was H5N1. Now these birds had a resistance. And we're like, of course they do. They have a strong immunity. So we're like, these birds from 2020 were already immunized back then, and now they're showing resistance. So we knew herd immunity was going to kick in on the rest of the farm. And it did. When herd immunity kicked in, we told CFIA, look, no more are dying. There's no need to kill these animals. Herd immunity's kicked in. These are the survivors. These are the strong ones. They're resistant. They're resistant now like the other ones. We've got to protect them. And they said, no, they're all sick. They came out. We said, look at them. They're all healthy. You can't say that. They said, no, there's no treatment for that. They're sick. And we're culling your entire farm. And they were just absolutely, then they were like, where are your antibodies? And where is this and that? And we're like, well, some stuff's over at the house on the other property. They said, yeah, well, we're coming for everything. When we call your farm, we're taking absolutely everything ostrich off your place. And we're like, it just didn't seem right. Everything that they've done has been an overreach, 100%. We said, can you not agree stamping out is not working and that you should have called these birds then when they were showing signs of sickness? They agreed. And they said, yeah, our policies aren't working. One day we'll probably change them. And I said, no. We said, today's the day. Today's the day you're going to change them. And
well, I don't see the point. Like this feels like COVID all over again. Like this really does, except it's birds. Because I remember a time where you'd have to prove that you had a vaccine, but you weren't allowed to like get an independent lab to prove that you had antibodies against it. Perhaps that you had the Omicron and you got over it and you've got antibodies, but it was a no deal. No, you have to have their therapeutic, the thing that they want you to take. Mm-hmm. And it seems like in this case, there's no therapeutic. They just want a culling. They just want to get rid of your ostriches.
We immediately offered them a solution with our business partner in Japan. He was studying H5N1. And we wrote 3 letters to the government and said, look, you could have the Kyoto University. He has a stockpile of H5N1 antibodies right now before our birds were even producing it. And we said, so we could actually have a treatment and he offered to treat all the animals. He said, let's stop the death right now. And he said, I'll even give the science to the Canadian government. And they just totally ignored everything we gave them.
Well, that's the biggest thing that is shocking me in this story is like the main stated purpose, it seems, is that they want to stamp out H5N1, period. So they don't want any poultry to get I'm tongue twistering on this one. They don't want any birds to get the bird flu in Canada. And if anyone gets bird flu, they have a policy of just call the herd. That's the deal. But if you're a scientific researching facility and you're working with international partners to try to have a cure for this, like we're talking about an actual antibody that other farmers could administer to their other types of poultry across the board, and this could wipe out this type of avian flu altogether. Why wouldn't they be interested in that?
We offered even with the ducks. We said, hey, why don't we stop it at the source where it's eradicate it? And we said, if it's aromatic and it's a respiratory thing, we said we could build little feeders along the whole migratory paths, country to country, and help everybody out and make little pellets that become like dust when they eat it. So they breathe in these antibodies, natural antibodies. And they said, oh, wildlife's not our problem. It's not, we have nothing to do with wildlife. So they just push that to the side as well.
Well, it's terrifying to me because it's like, well, I'm a solutions oriented kind of person. I'm a mechanic by trade. I do podcasting as a side gig, but immediately I see an issue. I'm immediately looking for an answer, and you're providing answers that sound absolutely applicable for this situation moving forward, right? This is an answer everybody's looking for, it seems like. But it seems like we have a machine that has a procedure. They're looking for a procedure to follow, not for an answer. And they're just moving forward on this. So now you've got word today. There's new word that's come forward as they're demanding that you cull these birds. And do you call them birds? I mean, they're huge, but they're birds, right? So we call them birds. They're demanding that you cull these birds, but then now you have another agency, the disposal agency, that's saying, well, we don't want them because if they are sick, that might become an issue. And what's happening with that?
They actually have a disposal site that they had contracted out to take all of what they call our highly infectious birds, the carcasses. And so when the judgment went against us on all counts, whether the judicial review happened properly or not, was clearly mishandled, misrepresented, misdealt with 100%. But we did get it from Judge Zinn, where he just denied us all counts and said that the call order was to move forward. So immediately they had already given out the contract to a land site near Castlegar. And I always have a hard time saying it, so that's why I just say a disposal site. But when they gave it to them, they had said that they were going to take it. Well, soon as they heard the decision was against us, it leaked out of the site from a few people that CFIA had contacted them and said expect carcasses in 1 to 4 days. Now they know, CFIA knows they're healthy. They refuse us to test them. If we test them, like Erica and Lisa were saying, it's a $250,000 fine, 6 months in jail, or both, or one or the other. We're not allowed to test, treat, or take anything off the farm. All we've asked for is to prove that our birds are healthy. We've been denied numerous times. They finally sent us an email back and said, it doesn't even matter if they're all healthy. We want to destroy them because this goes against our trading partners, but we live in a remote area. We don't do any trading. We're not selling meat, and these birds don't fly. They're quarantined. They're not spreading it, and they caught it from the ducks. So none of it makes sense, but this disposal site took on the contract. So RDCK today had a meeting, which is the regional district for Central Kootenay, our area, had a meeting to do, the ones that regulate that dump site. And so Katie, bless her heart, went on down with a group in a moment's notice. And as it happened, it was kind of cute hearing that she said they were passing lines past a cop. They were speeding to get there to be able to ask her questions. She said they Farrell pulled up to the front doors. She said she tripped out of the vehicle, tripped in the door. And then she was the second last person to be able to answer a question. And she asked them, you all have a job, and I understand it. She said, these animals are happy and healthy. If you could look beside your position and what you're doing, and you think of your kids, could you not think that this is totally wrong to take healthy carcasses, healthy birds, and kill them? And then they asked the RDCK to represent them. And RDCK say, we act as a body. We can't say that. They said, and they had 600 emails. They said letters come in. They had 290 people on Zoom calls wanting to ask questions. Their office was full. The whole meeting was about that dump going to kill our ostriches and take the waste. They said even if they were healthy and you put that many carcasses in one site, it would be devastating. And if these carcasses are highly infectious, as they say, you're going to pack them in dump trucks across the ferry, down a highway, and then you're going to bury them in a land facility. None of it made sense. But Katie had said, just please, everybody think about this. They said, you know what? We're taking a break. We need a break. We just got to take lunch. We'll come back and resume. So they took the break, and near the end of it, Katie phoned me and said, oh my goodness, they've asked us to come back in. So we all went on and we watched anxiously. And they said, we wanted to let you know, we've already sent minutes ago, we filed this paper. And they said, we have decided that this dump site, and we're making a precedence with them, they're not allowed to accept any waste products unless they are publicly tested animals for H5N1. So it had to be, and they said they were sending this to CFIA themselves, that they were not. Now, from this day forward, they have to test their carcasses. And that's the only way they would receive them is if they were actually sick. So huge day for the ostrich farm, another win.
That's big.
But we still know that's just one dump site. So now we have to think where would be the next one that they're going to go. So we have to be proactive, be on it. But it's a win for today. And we're working on getting an appeal, a stay order. And we're not giving up the fight. Like we said, this is beyond us, way beyond us. This is for natural immunity, herd immunity. This is to protect the strong, not to kill our food source, because as we're going in, CFIA shows up at your door, they're killing the healthy ones. The weak ones have already died off from the virus. So why are we not quarantining, monitoring, and testing and keeping the survivors and allowing the virus to mutate down to a cold? Instead, they want us to kill all these animals, replenish our farm with naive immune systems, and the migratory ducks are going to come next year, and that virus is going to mutate, but it's going to get stronger because now we've got naive immune systems. So we're literally creating our own pandemic.
Really? Is that how that works? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, viruses mutate no matter what. So do we allow it to mutate up or down? Well, in the wild, the animals are allowed to have their own herd immunity, and that's exactly what they do. The weak die off and the strong ones go on, and we protect our wildlife. So why are we not protecting our food source and our animals?
Yeah, that's a really interesting, way of. I hadn't considered that at all. Of course, I'm not in this line of work, so why would I have considered that? But that makes complete sense. But so when you go to the government as an expert, because I mean, how else can you look at this? You are an expert in your field, and you go to the government and you're talking to bureaucrats that are not experts. They're adjudicators. They're arbiters of whatever. A bunch of lines that have been written on a piece of paper by another bureaucrat. And you say, hey, I'm an expert in this. This is the smart way of going about it. What's the process there? When you say, we need a new protocol, your protocol stinks. How do we actually change the system? Or is it futile to even argue with them?
I don't know, maybe one of you girls want to answer that, because you girls have been the ones working in the background helping making this change too, big time.
It's a good question.
Is there an answer to it? Sorry.
Yeah. We think solutions too. I think a lot of us are built that way. We're just not, it's apparent that they're not interested in solutions. So it's like a wall. I don't know how else to put it, but when Karen's business and farm have the answers to so many solutions and logic, and you are the expert, Karen, you've told so many stories of caring for these beautiful animals that are like they go through everything just like people do. You get a sniffle here, one falls, and you take care of them. And it just is so cold not to care and not even to allow like an overlord that says what everything you can or cannot do. It's a real box.
I think what's disturbing is the lack of curiosity, right? It's like if we got the benefit of door B, right? Most farmers only get door A, right? We find it, and within 2 days, you're killed. We looked at the data across the farms and I believe it was just BC. I'm trying to recall now because we've looked at so much stuff. But of all the farms where culling has happened in the last year, 2 years, again, I'm trying to remember, but 200 and some thousand birds were sick, but 6.5 million have been culled. If we allowed, do you understand, 3.5% were actually sick. The other 96.5 weren't allowed the benefit of trying to work through an illness and recover, right? That we aren't even curious and that we can't even admit that maybe what we've done the last 20 years has not been working because we're culling more and more and more. It's not going down. It's not working. At what point do we say, this isn't working? At what point do we say that these ostriches that have not been sick for 120 days are fine? When does an illness end, right? The policy needs to change. I think what this court, this judicial review showed us was the ruling came because part of it was because they're following this policy. The policy is an unfair process of not allowing curiosity and to see what is behind door B. They should be curious of seeing what door B looked like that we weren't allowed to see before now. And that's why this ostrich situation feels so compelling to just keep on, because we've seen it. We've seen what recovery looks like. And we've seen, the antibodies are a whole other thing, but the fact that they can recover, like us humans. What if we get to the point that in your house you get sick, the rest of your family is likely going to get sick as well? Should we just define that everyone should be eliminated because they might get sick? It's I want to just clarify a couple things, because Karen's amazing information and stories, I want to just point out, because I know people are going to watch this and go, well, she said the word immunize. And the definition of immunize is not what we understand to be vaccination. And I know this got tripped up in the beginning. So Karen, your understanding of immunize, when you're speaking of it, I want you to explain your words, because I know that there's probably going to be questions coming from that. And then I have two other points that I want to make, but I want to make sure that we address that, because I feel like as soon as people hear that, their ears go up. They've been immunized.
Okay. Yeah, no, immunized is when the migratory ducks come through, they have the avian flu, they have H5N1, they come in, they eat around the birds peck up around the grains that they've been around, or eat a bit of their feces or whatever to get it. So now these birds have naturally been immunized. So they actually got the virus. But a lot of the ones with strong immune systems, because ostrich have one of the best immune systems of any land animal, they didn't die off like an average animal would. Like with chickens, overnight, thousands will die. We lost 15% on our farm, which they say is a low path, because a high path, we should have lost 75% of our farm. But when I say immunized, it's not they got a vaccine or anything. They got sick from a flu, and some didn't even get sick, but they literally built their own antibodies from this virus and now are immunized from the virus.
How is that different from inoculation?
A lot different, because it's natural. It's not a cocktail that's been made and we don't really know what's in the cocktail and we're getting a shot of. So a vaccine is something that they say is a immune response, but they add a whole bunch of stuff in there. And when we talk mRNA, and we really don't know what that's doing to our DNA, and we don't know the effects, and now all these effects are coming out. Absolutely. If I heard vaccine, I'd be scared too, because we don't know what vaccines do anymore. We used to have this precedence and this idea in our heads that we all get vaccinated and that's the way we do it. But unfortunately, COVID-19 really brought a new awakening and awareness to what are we taking and what are we allowing the government to put in our body. So what we're doing is creating natural antibodies, and we're offering solutions, treatments, therapeutics. We could even do a diagnostic kit where it's 10 times more effective and accurate, that if you have H5N1, you would be able to find right away. But everything we're offering is natural. There's no chemicals. There's no synthetic this, synthetic that. We're offering something that's natural and no side effects. Not like, oh, you might get epilepsy, brain tumors, heart attack, stroke. I think we've heard it all. Long COVID or COVIDs are suffering. There's just so many problems with that vaccine that we are now learning about.
Incredible. So where are we now with this whole story? Where's the hope moving forward? So you're looking for a stay right now. There's a victory today because the disposal unit doesn't want to take them, so they can't be called in the immediate. But then this slow moving machine, this beast of a bureaucracy, is just coming for you. Is there a way to stave it off, head it off somewhere else? Maybe is there a political solution, or have you gone down that avenue?
We're at a provincial level right now, where we've got MLAs, MPs, very much engaging with us. Scott Anderson, our MP for the area, showed up. Before he was MP, he showed up, and he showed up here again personally, which really meant so much. He shook our hand and said he was going to do everything he could to support us, which is absolutely amazing. We had Jordan Keeley, an MLA, actually get a spot for him to speak in legislation assembly in Victoria, and he invited her, and they had a press conference after, which Katie got to address the issue further and ask questions about, or they asked questions and she answered and got a really big response. Got to sit down with the Minister of Agriculture and really explain the CFIA policies, which I don't think they actually really knew. So that was pretty interesting. And they said to let them digest it. And they said they needed a day to digest it. And then in a few hours, we heard from our lawyers saying, oh, you're going to have an answer at the early beginning of the next week. Then we thought, is that coincidental? Could it be? But we got a really bad decision. And now it really makes us question the entire justice system. I'm still in shock. I've spent the last 2 nights, sleeping in my truck out in the middle of my birds at the back. Dave on the other side of the farm sleeping, just in case they come in the middle of the night. We've got 24-hour security, people dedicating their time and their lives on this, and they're sitting in their trucks, staying up all night with walkie-talkies, watching for traffic, seeing where it goes, just to give somebody some lead time so that we can surround the farm, so we can make a stand for healthy animals. What's our world come to when we have to stand up for healthy animals to protect them? It's become almost a bully move now, that they can't be wrong. And why can't you be wrong? Why can't you admit that maybe your system didn't work, and maybe you should work with the people who are paying your wages to be in the position you are? Why are you not working with the farmer? The farmer is basically shooting, shoveling, and shutting up. They're not going to say a word to you because you're going to come in and kill them all. And a lot of our animals are pets. So if you're a caring animal person, you don't want some government on a suspicion. They can suspect, and we've heard farmers lost 10,000 chickens they suspected it, came in, wiped them out, and tested. After the test results came back negative. Oh, we're sorry.
That's terrifying. That's terrifying that they would have so much power over people. And we're hearing a lot of stories like this. There was a story about a small scale chicken farmer who was just jailed in Alberta over one too many dozen eggs that went out his door. Like it's really become an untenable situation dealing with these government bureaucracies. So I mean, I don't know where else to say to this, but to say, Godspeed, hope the absolute best for you in this pursuit of saving these ostriches that are clearly healthy animals at this point. It seems that there's no sense in pursuing this. And I think the big plea here is that the public perhaps start making phone calls, start calling people up. Is there a place where people can call and say, I don't want this to occur. Why are you doing this? You're wasting my tax dollars in pursuing this. Is there an avenue for that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Erica.
So yes, there's at the saveourostriches.com. There's a whole team trying to keep up with the media and where to call, where to write letters. There's a sample letter in there. That's how the difference was made today, is so many people we're just so thankful for every single letter and email and phone call. They're working on a lot more that's going to be coming out. And so you can look a lot of information up there. There's a brand new Take Action page, and there's a lot more items coming up on there. So there's Save Our Ostriches media online, but it's all on that page. I think is the central place that we're trying to keep up with everything there.
Well, I can imagine keeping up is a difficult one. So, I mean, I'll put the page up on the screen again. Save Our Ostriches is the website. That's .com. Yeah, this is the news portion of it. Then there's lots of different avenues for people to go. Is there like a mailing campaign that's on this, or a calling campaign where people can get a phone number and people can make action from their
so there's, I think, like on the Take Action page, there's more coming, I think, even tonight, because every day under community Take Action. Yes. So that was the letter that people could just copy and paste and send to the RDCK. And you can put your own words in there, but they're working on other letters right now. And so I just think watch this page and we'll have it. There's another letter system that's being created, but it's just not up there. Hopefully by tonight.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of work. You guys have a lot cut out for you. It's unbelievable. And
yes,
well, of course,
just this week we've had more people offer to help and come on the team, and it's just so heartwarming that people want to work together. And I just really think, I think one thing this ostrich farm and Karen and these beautiful ostriches are teaching us is that there is no division. We all need to work together, and it's like incredible connections and both on the farm and online and the background team and all that. So we're trying to look at it that way a lot, is that things aren't being done to us, they're being done for us, because this is showing us really what the country we're living in, and that it gives us, we are powerful to all do something. And that's why I think your show is perfect for today.
To do something. Yeah, that's right. That's helpful. That's helpful. Yeah. Now, I understand you guys have been reaching out to, maybe they're reaching out to you, but a lot of news agencies in the south of us in the United States have picked up this story. Have you been getting much response from the United States about this? What's the reaction?
Oh,
Karen, you're smiling. I would like you grab that.
Yeah, no, we have been talking to a radio station in New York, and actually tons of podcasts. There's been an overwhelming response of media, and now they're even saying, you guys know you're global. Like there's an outreach of people realizing what's wrong and that it's not working. And the stamping out programs worldwide, the World Health Organization sets out the guidelines. So this is actually federal, but it also is very much global. And so this is where we all can be a voice. We can all stand up and make something. And in the States right now, Katie's been doing so many podcasts, but one special one is New York. And John Casamedias has a radio station there. And he's an amazing person for bringing really good people together. And he's actually had Robert Kennedy on there and said, hey, what about saving them ostrich? And wow. Robert Kennedy has said, no, I think he said, I 100% support that. We need to save them ostrich in Edgewood.
I know Robert Kennedy has been doing a lot for, immunity stuff. He's very well. I mean, his position in the United States is to make America healthy again, and by extension, that helps out Canada tremendously. So I'm really, really pleased to hear that he's behind this.
Yeah, and then even Doug Ford, he was just on this past week. Or at the beginning of the week. And he said, hey, my favorite subject, what about saving them ostrich? And he said, well, it's kind of out of my jurisdiction. And he said, well, you could be whispering in the ears of federal people, though you're in government. And he said, yeah, absolutely. I'm an animal lover. And he said, that's a real worthy cause. Yeah. So John Casabedias, our hearts go out to him. He's an amazing gentleman, and he's really making a noise there. But he's bringing some pretty nice, high-powered people. And he even said to Doug Ford, he says, yeah, I talked to Robert Kennedy again. He said, if BC doesn't want them ostrich, he says, we'll take them. So, but no, our big thing is we don't want to lose our birds. We want to be able to continue the good research we're doing. We want to provide something that's natural. And we want to start really doing the big thing of protecting all our farmers, protecting the animals, offering treatments, solutions, not this stamping out and shutting up policy. And that's all they're doing, is taking an easy route. And it hasn't been effective for 21 years. It's time we make a change.
It needs to be said that South Africa has stopped stamping out, as has, I believe, the US.
Wow. So after all, if all is said and done, is there any plans for possibly an underground railroad to get them out if the US wants to take them, or Alberta or somewhere else? Obviously, I'm joking.
We could offer them a pardon, I guess. Pardon all the ostrich. I don't know.
To save our ostriches at gmail.com. We help monitor that with the farm. There's a lot of people writing that just bring him here. They're offering to take these.
Oh yeah.
Ostrich. Yeah. So there's a lot. There's all types of help being offered. It's quite an outreach.
Wow, that's amazing.